I'm Tracy,
And I'm Ken,
and welcome to our journey as we give it all up.
to find the simpler life.
Life is a dance, and you are the dancer. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. Mukhi was named after the Sanskrit word moksha, meaning liberation, and that seemed to be the running theme of this journey. Liberating ourselves from all we had held onto for so long.
We're moving from that beauty that we've created over 26 years to that beautiful van, which we've been creating for the last 2 years. I want less stuff and more experience.
Yeah.
That's what this
So do I.
means for me.
Ken has not been well over the last few years. Medically boarded as physically disabled. His chronic leg infections became really bad at the beginning of the pandemic. During this process, they found cancer, so he was having to deal with chemo as well. The blows just kept coming, and ironically, the pandemic was the last of our problems. During this time, our business was hit hard by one large non-payment, which took us to our knees. We knew keeping our home was now not an option. And so, with our backs against the wall, we put our home on the market. We were totally beaten. We surrendered to the inevitable. We surrendered not knowing what our next move would be. During Ken's cancer treatments, we began watching YouTube van life episodes. Most were young and beautiful, 20-something-year-olds, but we noticed others on the older side too, which gave us a little hope. After years of responsibility, owning businesses and raising children, we longed for freedom. We longed for a complete change. So would it be a retirement home, a frail care facility, or life without a permanent address, on the road, with no guarantees of sturdy brick walls, just the promise of experience with less stuff to take care of?
The thought of a retirement home scared the life out of me, so I'd rather do this any day than stuck in a 4x2 two-bit retirement home with everybody else doddering around. I'm not interested.
Now it was time to move even deeper into surrender. I've been teaching this philosophy in my yoga classes for years, and now had to put it into practice and live by it. Who would I be without it all? Was this place who I was? Did it hold all my dreams, and would I find new passions and new dreams? I had found such a comfort over the years of my practice, but all of a sudden I could not find this peace, as my mind tried to overthink my way out of the mess we were in. Fight or flight, adrenaline was pumping through my veins. Here I was teaching present moment philosophy, while my own present moment was pure hell. I had to reframe my entire life, leave behind all I had built, loved, and held dear. It's a very strange morning knowing this is my last sunrise at this house. Every child's party, from 3 and 5 to 21. Our wedding.
Because Ken packing his last bag that his wife was shouting him at to pack.
Ken's shit is out the bathroom.
Saying goodbye and selling up was one of the hardest things we have ever done.
Mom's gonna miss you, Ams. You're gonna be okay, girl.
But at the same time, a huge relief, as it had become a very heavy burden.
That's me. Game on, people.
It was time for a complete overhaul of who and what I thought I was, and what worked and what no longer served me. Choosing to let it all go instead of breaking ourselves into a million pieces to keep it.
I'm feeling quite excited but scared at the same point. We is what we is and we are's what we are's, and we will do what we have to do, and we will carry on. Here we have a year 2000 Iveco 2.8 turbo diesel. Lovely van, isn't it? Lovely. Our Mookie. Both the front seats swivel. This table is made from bits of plumbing and bits of old wood, and it works. We can play cards and everything with that. Sink, running water, gas, bamboo top. The bed is superb, so comfortable. Bathroom, I'm not too sure about using that myself yet. I've built many cars in my time, but it's my first time building a van. We collected the ice cream truck in late November 2020, after the hectic lockdown imposed on the planet. She drove well, but fourth gear would have to do as I couldn't find fifth, ? When I drove it back from Mboggan Tweeny after it got shipped to where we picked it up from, I was driving it back down the road and it was rattling and squeaking and it drove me absolutely insane. As soon as I got back here, I pulled everything out of the truck and started from scratch. That's exactly what I did. If you start with someone else's project, you've got to make it right or rethink it and start it again how you want it. It was obvious we had to rebuild it. Then I started to map it out. Tracy and I talked plenty about what we needed inside, but most of that I ignored because I'm Ken. I've had cellulitis lymphedema for over 30 years with ongoing leg infections. And during the pandemic they became very severe with IV drips every bloody second week. It affected my daily life in every way. And then they found cancer. And to top this, the business was sliding away from me. 2 tasty chickens, beautiful night. We knew we couldn't keep the house, and to fill the gap we started dreaming about life on the road in a van, with a goal of eventually finding a simpler way of life somewhere else that was more sustainable. The house was sold and time was ticking fast. As Tracy packed up the house, I worked on Mookie until the last moment, until our last goodbyes. We're closing the garage to my life. And we are moving on. Mookie van, here we come. And then we left 49 Delaware, 27 years. Bye.
We had made our choice, and so we had to put our hands in the air and trust life itself. Our quest for a simpler, more sustainable lifestyle with a much smaller budget had begun.
To reap the crop of those already sown. Midnight star, I know you're...
Our first weeks in the Drakensberg, we were running on pure adrenaline. The cold was numbing as it dulled the emotions of grief and the fact that we were both scared shitless. Did we really know what we were doing? Ali Smith says, that's what winter is. An exercise in remembering how to still yourself, then come pliantly back to life again, but to be brought back to the moment we were in over and over again. We had no guarantees of the future, and the past was just history, but the present moment was very real. Our first destination was Underberg, in the beautiful southern Drakensberg Mountains of KwaZulu-Natal. This road I've travelled all my life, and I have never, ever seen potholes this large. The road as we got into Bulwer had more potholes than road itself, and I started getting nervous at the amount of knocks that Mookie was taking. But we made it to Kotso Camp. We parked our van next to the river. The constant sound of flowing water awakened within me a part of myself that had laid dormant for years. Before we left, life was traumatic. Letting go of it all, arranging a new life, had turned me into a human doing, not a human being.
packing up, leaving the family and friends. It's a strange old situation.
Fortunately, with all this chaos and change, we had Taryn with us, our Travelling Toes videographer and editor, and her furry companion Coda. I loved Taryn's vision, humour and depth. She gave the journey perspective right from the beginning. And her youth and vigour made us feel like the bullies that we were. Oh, in the first week or so, we lost our dog Amber. It hit us really hard. It was just so lovely to have Coda around, and somehow it felt like Amber was with us. I loved the resilience she showed in that first week in that tiny little tent with the freezing cold. It just made me feel like she's going to be able to travel with us easy peasy. Saying this though, it was tough. There's not much space in a van. So this is where we are, trying to open the back doors of the van.
And I think the button's fallen down and locked the door from the inside.
That's Taryn right down there.
We can't get to it from above the bed. So Taryn's crawled into this tiny little garage space.
And Ken trying to hold it all open here.
Screw is stripped. Okay, try open it.
Voila! And out Taryn comes. There's not a dull moment here at this bookie van. Trying to get to know the workings of how to maneuver in the van. You have to move, I have to wait. My patience had to be cultivated. We lost everything. We couldn't find anything. We bashed our heads. We bashed our hands while we were here.
Hit the cupboard.
I brushed my teeth
I burst out laughing.
and hit my head so hard. And it just means more mindfulness. Everything in the van takes time to do. And it made me realize how pampered and how soft I'd become. That everything had been on tap and laid out for me for so many years. And all of a sudden I was in this van. Okay, we need water. Go get water. The first few nights in the van, I felt pretty claustrophobic. Between the cupboard length shortening me and being under this cupboard, every time I turned over, I'd hit my arm on this cupboard. We found
Over like that.
our sink now. I couldn't have a conversation with a friend. Ken would chirp.
But Tracy does that to me as well. I'm on the phone. She said, "Who are you talking to?"
And humour to see it through. Because if we hadn't had humour in that first week, we probably would have been crying a lot.
This is Ken being romantic. It's romance, darling. This is romance.
This is romance.
Ready for our next journey towards Morgan Bay, content that everything was working, we set off. And then it happened. 10 minutes into the journey.
When you're driving along and you see this black thing flashing past you on the left-hand side, I said, how did the wheels fly off the van?
I looked up into the rearview mirror and saw smoke, white smoke as the van came down onto the road, and then it started veering. My heart just went into my mouth. In that moment, I felt like the trip was over.
It was a WTF moment.
Thank God he wasn't hurt.
Trying to get this van onto this truck, and it looks like it's going to topple over, and it's scary.
How could this happen? We were only in our first week. The sick feeling as we watched her being transported to Underberg. We would have to endure the icy cold weather for even longer. This week gave us the solitude and stillness to yet again question everything. Should we be doing this at all? At this age, can we handle more explosions like this?
Mookie is back in action.
Yeehaw!
First big obstacle, faced, challenged, overcome. We made it.
We're still here and Mookie's still about. Life goes on. Mookie goes on. Ken and Tracy go on. Tracy and Ken go on.
The adventure, the hard knocks, and the unexpected. This was all part of it.
Here we are again, happy as can be. I got the key of the mountains, no one's got more than me.
So this being said, we recommitted to the journey ahead, this time a little more prepared for the bigger challenges that might come our way.
I'm busy packing the van for the next adventure. Curtis found a spot.
we would keep on keeping on. So feeling raw and vulnerable, we limped into Morgan Bay, emotionally and physically exhausted. The soft light of this beautiful place, with its ocean and nature, allowed us to move through this exhausting period as we adjusted to this new transient way of life. Morgan Bay is a small town, 10 kilometers wide type of small. It has a mile-long sandy beach with the most stunning sunrises and a river estuary that leads into the ocean. We parked our Mookie van at the Yellowwood Forest campsite, a very shaded campsite, with no natural light for the solar to work. Yet another lesson we learnt. Make sure you park your van in a sunny spot.
Fuck no, there's goats in the road, man. Fuck no. Overcast day today here. It looks like this is the place. This is the place, man.
We had a few weeks of wonderful walks along the most incredibly clean and expansive beach, with sunrises that will be very hard to forget.
Gun solo.
By Port Alfred, we began to get into the groove of van living, and in that nurturing community found others to share stories with and learn from, with simple living still firmly in our thoughts. Port Alfred lies on the banks of the Cowie River. The long stretches of beach, game reserves and scenic marina make Port Alfred an enticing destination, with an incredible stretch of beach on either side of the river mouth. We parked Mookie at a private campsite called Meadowlino. We were getting better at setting up our van, and more comfortable too. Taryn set up her tiny little red tent and her creation station, which is always a laugh for us.
From what I was used to before, I just can't believe. Why did it take so long for me to get into this?
And we made a cozy fire every night. Meadowlino has an interesting community of campers and cabin dwellers, from young to older, from artists and writers to camper vans and travellers, all living this lifestyle and loving it. This place had heart, with a diverse mix of cultures, ages and backgrounds. This little microcosm made us think way more about what simple living meant to us going forward. One of the downsides of Port Alfred was Taryn losing her precious drone.
The only way to have my drone, because insurance won't cover it, is to find my drone.
We had the coordinates, so we took the Mini on some 4x4 road along the river, trying really hard to access it.
Okay, so we've got our canoe. Meet Dylan. How's it though?
Taryn even got a rock climber to help her scale the cliff to recover the drone.
Paddle to get to the rock. So this is what we're working with. We're going to climb up here. All of those little trees sticking out are cacti trees.
Taryn is searching for the drone. Lucky it's got GPS.
We are going to scale this cliff face. Don't know what to call this thing. Dylan's making his way up the search for the drone. We are currently in the bush. So far, no drone.
But the cactus thick cover seemed to have engulfed it, and after 5 hours of searching and light fading fast, the drone could not be found. This event was heartbreaking for Taryn and ourselves. Another challenge, another lesson. The art of non-attachment, or as my yoga teacher used to say, compassionate detachment. The journey of Mookie is teaching us so much. Simple living, acceptance, letting go, yet still having the clarity of moving forward. For every chapter, there is an adventure, a journey, and for every journey, there is a challenge that offers us a lesson, and with every lesson, the choice to grow from it. So, with a sad but grateful heart, we left on a rain-soaked day to our next destination, wondering, what will the next adventure be? And what obstacles will we face next? And most importantly, what will we learn from it all? We did realize how challenging life can be without a fixed address. Van life is not as simple as it's portrayed. When constantly on the move, every day there's a new problem to be solved. And this created a little bit more uncertainty as we would wonder how we would cope permanently in this situation. Although by Tsitsikamma and Knysna we began to relax more into it. As we overcame challenges, we learned more about the Mookie Van, but more importantly about ourselves and each other.
Okay, so it's laundry day.
The little things that made our days would be great laundry facilities or clean ablution blocks with, a bonus being a bath.
Mookie on the move!
The drive from Port Alfred to Tsitsikamma was smooth trucking. Fantastic roads, wind farms, and aloe-filled hills turned into majestic mountain ranges, gorges, forests, and fynbos. Pretty spectacular. We arrived at an empty winter campsite called Tsitsikamma Sunrise. Another gorgeous space. It used to take us hours to set up our van. Now it takes us under an hour. Us bullies were improving with a little routine we developed for ourselves.
Cows parading past us. Morning, ladies. Go on, Shans. Get in there. Udders are full.
This is Africa. We had our fire sizzling by sunset.
Because it was bloody cold, man. The sun is shining, shining for me. What's not to like?
This has always been a favourite area of South Africa for me, the lush forests in the shade of the mountains. We stayed a week, enjoying the secluded Nature's Valley Lagoon, and felt privileged having it all to ourselves, except for Nelson. We were across the road from Nature's Valley Farm Store that served mouth-watering scones and yummy coffee, which we took full advantage of. But Mookie had to keep moving, an easy drive to Knysna, where we parked at Woodbourne, near the Knysna Heads. But again, no dogs allowed. So while Taryn worked at Tsitsikamma, we explored Knysna. The campsites got better and better as we travelled up the coast, and by the time we reached the paradise known as the wilderness, we were blown away. We parked up along the Toes River at the Sandparks Nature Reserve called Ebb and Flow. This clean and well-run campsite blew our socks off.
And of course, we were wearing lots of socks because it's bleeding cold, wasn't it?
And again, obviously, no dogs allowed. Separated again, Taryn went to set up camp at a backpackers in a magical fairy forest.
I've got a new tent. I have no idea how to put this up, but we're going to figure it out.
She upgraded from her little red tent to a brand new home we gifted her for the journey.
These pieces didn't come with an instruction manual. One can only assume that it goes in like that, but you know, I don't actually know. I mean, like, what are these even for? There's so many of them.
Play empty parts that you know which piece goes where.
This is amazing. So this is my tent now, my new home.
So she went from a 1-bed tent to a 3-bed tent.
Upgrade!
Upgrade!
This was our best park up to date, so we stayed over a month. On a Bali special, that is. Another lesson: regardless of how beautiful a place may be, some spaces are just not for you. The fairy forest Taryn was camping in was crowded with young party animals whose music raved until the early hours. This was not conducive to Taryn's lifestyle. So she packed up and searched for a new spot that was dog-friendly. Again, very hard to find. We believe in manifesting, and manifesting we did. An incredible spot at Wild Farm overlooking the wilderness.
Just got back from a really beautiful run. So we're at the top here at Wild Farm. It's one of the most spectacular places I've been to on the garden route. And there's my beautiful spots. It's a little bit cloudy today, but that's okay. The most friendliest dogs ever. So if you have a dog, this place is amazing.
I had my first supping experience, paddling up the river with the sun shining and the beauty of nature all around me.
Our young paddler is out. Yeah, boy, yes. Do like they do on YouTube. Power up onto the bank. Go on, girl, give it some. Power, power, power. Oh, okay.
Fred is taking us through the Outeniqua Mountains.
We missed the company of our travelling toes and little Coda, but they were loving Wild Farm, running the mountains in the morning, editing in the day, and drumming by night. Taryn even managed to find a 3-day trail race that she entered.
I'm going for a bit of support. So she got the old get up. Ken's on the case. Support for the big team.
Can you say you've seen the sun? What would
Rock
you
and
do
roll,
if
Taryn!
it was gone?
Gearing up for some bad weather. Ken is battling some guy ropes. The wind is blowing.
There is always something to fix on Mookie as she moves. We had a small leak around the front vent. This took a back-breaking day of undoing all the decking to get to it. I had a good view while I worked, and within a day I had it all put back together. Video from the top of the van. It's so peaceful here and nice. We're all coexisting. Got to change my feet. Water. Couldn't move for 2 days after though. We'll have to keep the name Bali for now.
We were in love with the wilderness and felt we could have stayed in this portal forever. Yet somehow, amongst all the beauty and the freedom we were experiencing, we began to feel untethered, ungrounded, and quite unsure of our next move.
To awaken all those senses deep within.
During this time, Taryn received word from Durban that her mom had been admitted to hospital and was gravely ill. Taryn's mom was in a medically induced coma and had gone through 3 surgeries. Her chances of survival were slim. So Taryn headed home to be with her family. As she left, it felt like a grey cloud had moved over the wilderness as we waited to hear the news. Was her mom going to be okay? Would she have to stay in Durban? Was our journey together already over? Another chapter, another obstacle. Each moment offers us an opportunity to learn and grow, and to grieve and release. Nothing in life is certain, or even constant. The only constant is change. It's only through growth, reform, and change that true security is ever found. We wondered what to do next. Ken's knee was killing him, and I had pulled a tendon in my back, both being van injuries. When you're in a confined space and your body contracts with the cold, and you're moving in a very small space in some very strange positions, The Bullies were feeling it for sure. After 30 years of living in a big home and in one location with everything we needed, this adventure had been a shock to our systems. We began longing for a place to go back to, a base to rest, and a place we could recuperate, a place where we could see a dentist as well. And when work needed to be done on the van, where would we stay? We had no mommy's house to go back to. Van life certainly had its challenges, and these are important realistic things to think about. This journey of ours had definitely been an adventure of a lifetime. The letting go of the old with all the grief and sorrow that comes with it. We knew we had to keep moving forward. This whole trip was about reaching the Western Cape and checking out Berrydale, even though there was no real set plan after that. So we left our piece of paradise and headed for Swellendam, lying at the bottom of the majestic Langeberg mountain range. We spent a few days at Bontebok National Park, spaciously quiet and remote.
Shame we're going home back to somewhere else tomorrow, but who knows?
It was wonderful, and we could have stayed way longer. It was an awesome, well-organized park-up. Well, we're leaving this beautiful Bontebok National Park to Berrydale. We needed to thaw out a bit, to warm up and to stretch out and allow our bodies to heal. And voila, manifest it did. We were guided to a beautiful spot, which was perfect for us. And we could see out the holiday rush with space. And it even had a fireplace. Mookie is on the Trudeau Pass. And how's this for a view? We travelled over the mountain and through the spectacular Trudeau Pass, finally reaching our destination at Berrydale, along the Route 62. We unpacked the van and soaked up the stillness of this quaint little village, sitting in a circle of mountains on the top of the Overberg. Life is a paradox. Going from permanence to impermanence, and yet here we are, yearning again for some permanence. We had to sit with a very deep question. Did we want to keep moving forward in a van? Or was Berrydale our little treasure that had called us from the start? Maybe this could be our base, our place to come home to, our nest to rest. And so we took a deep breath of this clean mountain air and rested up for just a while. A flowing river continues changing its shape and its speed. It'll never go back to the way it was. Everything on this earth is the same as a river, reminding us that the only thing in the universe that will never change is in fact that everything changes constantly. Van life is a movement to a less cumbersome life, a life with less stuff, and a life with more experience. More and more people across the colour line, across the cultural line.
No matter what race you are.
It doesn't matter. It's just this movement to actually live a happier life without the trappings of the white picket fence.